child forgotten in the first place. So you see, like I said, the attention was given to the girl child because of the plethora of negative issues that affected her. You also know that the girl child faced discrimination in many African societies. You will also agree with me that in some countries, some societies, the female child, the girl child, is subjected to genital mutilation, things like that, to curb their sexual appetite. The girl child was denied education because it was believed that education ends in the kitchen. You also know that in countries like Zimbabwe, the girl child is usually, sexually abused, or was usually sexually abused through cultural practice such as chiramu. So this all meant that there was so much attention given to the girl child at the expense of the boy child. Okay. We have seen that girls and women have been given opportunities for economic empowerment. Girls and women did not have opportunities originally for economic empowerment. For example, they could not get title to land. We also know that girls were, and sometimes are still subjected to early marriages in other societies, and girls were and are still subjected to abuse. And because of all that, there was so much attention given to the girl child, so that we could release her, we could help her. But this was all happening at the expense of the boy child. Now, what happened then? What benefits have accrued by empowering the girl child? We now realize that girls are more empowered, they are now aware of their rights, and they can access a number of things that they did not have before. We now see that girls now outperform boys academically. In a study conducted last year in 71 countries, 70% of the girls reached the expected standards in maths, reading, and writing, compared with just 60% for boys. We now know that the number of girls doing university programs is now higher compared to boys. Women are now more than a third or more likely to go to university than men. In the UK, for example, 27.3% of all young men are expected to go to university this year, compared to 37.1% of young women. So you see, because of all those efforts that were happening to try and empower the girl child, we see now more girls going to university than boys. In Zimbabwe, for example, in 2020, 62,629 females were recruited in tertiary learning institutions, compared to only 53,699 males. So another thing that has happened because of that continued support of the girl child is that girls have more support systems and models than boys. And girls now get far more protection than boys. Now, that is good when the girl child is being empowered. We cannot dispute that. But we want to see now how that empowerment of the girl child has negatively affected the boy child. Okay, so the fact is that society is now more focused on the girl child, and that is rapidly suffocating the male child. Yet the boy child is just as vulnerable as the girl child. These are just children, they are just the same. But more support was being given to the girl child, of course, understanding the circumstances that she's growing in. But that has all been happening at the expense of the boy child. And in the end, it suffocates the male child. Yet the children are just children. They're just equally vulnerable. Okay, the boy child is just as prone to sexual assault and suffering like the girl child. And so overall, what I'm saying is that the girl child has been empowered, yes, but at the expense of the boy child. Okay, so what do we really mean when we say the boy child has been neglected or has been forgotten? What is it that we mean there? Now, boys, you see, they rarely get skills training on household chores. That is a very critical point. So because of the continued empowerment of the girl child, it was girls, or in most cultures, especially in African cultures and traditions, it is the girl child who is trained on also chores. They are trained on how to run the kitchen. They are prepared for marriages. They are prepared how to handle their husbands, how to treat the husband's relatives. Or usually the training is given to the girl child. They are trained how to do work at home, in the raw areas, wherever. But boys rarely get those skills training on any household chores. They don't usually get such kind of thing. That is the first point that indicates that the boy child is actually brought in from neglected. Boys boys are considered to be strong, and because they are considered to be strong, they are not expected to cry. Okay, and this has been a critical factor in high suicide rates that occurs in men. Okay, so what happens is that as the boy child is growing, they are told that you have to be strong. Boys don't cry. You know, don't express your emotions. People should not see your weaknesses. That's what the boy child is taught. Okay, but that in fact is one of the reasons why they end up committing suicide, because they don't talk about their problems. They think about their problems. Whilst girls are taught to talk about their problems, and talking about the problem releases it, and therefore releases the tension and makes it much better to live a stress-free life. Okay, boys are not usually given psychosocial support. This is usually given to girls. So you see that in most cases, because boys are considered to be strong, told you have to be strong, and as a result, they don't usually get a lot of psychosocial support. Yet the idea that as a boy you should be strong is the same reason, exactly the same reason why boys are weak. So boys and men are generally emotionally weak because of that kind of upbringing. So, like I have already said, affirmative action has been happening in most sectors, has been benefiting the girl child at the expense of the boy child. What we have seen, another critical point, is that the boy child significantly lacks proper role models. This is a vicious cycle that has been created by years of neglect that have led to irresponsible fathers, alcoholics, drug addicts, and violent men. So, like I said, that tradition and cultures have mainly supported the correct upbringing of the girl child, protecting the girl child, allowing the girl child to express herself and things like that. So what we have seen is that we have grown up men who are not strong emotionally. We have grown up men who are not responsible because they've not been brought up well. They do not have the skills, the psychosocial skills. They do not know how to handle other people. And those are now men, and they are not in a position to be good models to the little boys. So what happens there is that we now have a vicious cycle. The boys don't have anyone to look up to, and that becomes a challenge. It creates a perpetual problem where we will continue to have the same kind of problems. So we understand that the boy child is just equally at risk as the girl child. You see that 14.2% of boys report some form of sexual abuse compared to 20% of girls, according to Center for Disease Control in America. So you see that whilst the rate of sexual abuse is slightly lower than in boys, slightly lower than in girls, but there is sexual abuse that actually happens in boys. So boys are equally at risk, but they don't get as much support and sympathize as girls do. Okay, boys do not usually report their symptoms, and of course, they're not usually glaring. They are more psychological. So you see the boy child becomes withdrawn, etc. They don't talk about the abuse. They don't express it because they are not taught that they should do that. Because the assumption usually from the society is that boys cannot be abused. Boys and young men are 3 times more likely to die from suicide compared to girls and young women. So I've already alluded to this point that there are higher suicide cases in men and boys because of that issue that I talked about, that boys are taught not to cry, boys are taught not to share their problems from an early background. And that problem of not sharing and not expressing emotions, not crying, is one of the critical reasons why you see that men are more likely to die from suicide. So research has actually indicated that men are 3 times more likely to die from suicide than women. But I believe that if we are going to do another research this year, especially in Zimbabwe, the rates will be much higher than just 3 times more. And like I said, there is neglect of the boy child. You see that even at organizational level, national and international level, so much organizations they focus on the girl child more than the boy child. I assembled about 25 organizations, non-governmental organizations that advocate for young people's rights, and of those 25 organizations, only 2 focus on the boy child specifically. 15 of them focus on the girl child only, while the other 8 look at both the boys and the girls. So you see the neglect that I'm talking about. You also notice that the UN calendar is 4 days dedicated to girls and women, but none is specifically dedicated to the boy child. Conditions for boys at high school. If we go to our high schools, especially here in Zimbabwe, you see that conditions for boys, high school dormitories, for example, are usually very pathetic for boys compared to the girls. It would be as if you are at a different school altogether. All right. So parents of boys need to quickly realize that they are the only sustainable, available support for their child. Because even our institutions, even our governments, and all, they are not paying attention to the boy child. So what does it mean? What are the implications of the boy child forgotten status on the mental health? Okay, so because the boy child has been forgotten in that regard, they seem to find solace from all that neglect. They seem to find solace in drug and substance abuse. So that's what they say when you talk to the boys and men who have been involved in drugs. They indicate largely that it's because I did not get support on this. It's because I had been dumped by my girlfriend. It's because I feel my parents are not giving me attention and things like that. And they end up involving themselves in drugs and alcoholism. They also end up resorting to criminal behavior. And of course, I've already talked about suicide, which was also another implication, which is directly caused by the boys are strong mentality, boys don't cry mentality. Okay, so suicide rates are much higher among males than females, as already alluded to. There's a lack of positive role models. Boys lack proper role models. Like I've indicated, the perpetual empowerment of the girl child has led to the creation of father-absent households. So what happens here is that, like I said, we train our girls on how to, on skills, for the household, and skills for the marriage institution, for the family institution. We train our girls for that. So you see that girls will be taught that, when you go, when you get married, this is what the husband will do. This is how you are supposed to respond. You need to pray for your family. You need to pray for your husband. You need to pray for your children. You need to pray for this. Be prepared for this kind of problem. This is how you handle it and all. But boys rarely get that kind of support and training. And because of that, you see that we are bringing up very irresponsible men boys who become men, and because of that, they don't know how to handle their families, and some of them are so much irresponsible that they don't even pay attention to it, and they leave and abandon their families. That's why we then see that increase in father absent household, because we have very irresponsible men. We never really trained our boys to handle their families well. So father absent households entail that the boy child will ultimately will not have a proper role model. You see, so when the father is not there in the family, chances are very high that the boy child will not have a proper role model, because the father is usually the prime model for the son. So the loss of a father increases also the risk that the child, and particularly a boy, is twice more likely to become delinquent than that child with a father. So I've just summarized here how the boy child is at risk because of a number of things. They tend to gangs, for example. Most boys tend to gangs because friends, they act like family, together they become like family, and that's the gang, and they've also indicated, most boys have also indicated that the groups make them feel good and accepted. That's why they then tend to gangs. Drugs, they tend to drugs, most of these boys, because they report that it makes them forget about things, forget about problems, which problems they could have eased by sharing and talking, something that they have not been trained to do. Also, they indicate that drugs help them to hang around. We've seen that there are higher rates of violence among boys and men. The indication is that there are frustrations, and violence is, of course, a very pathological way of expressing those frustrations. There is a higher criminal rates in boys and men, and this is largely done to address poor socioeconomic status and a means to fit into peer groups, a means to fit drugs and substance addiction, which we have already talked about. And peer pressure, just like gangs, they help people to feel like family. Now, what can be done to balance or empower the boy child in this case? What do we do now after all this? Of course, the bottom line is that we need to equally protect the boy child. The same thing that we do to the girl child should be done to the boy child. We need to provide proper role models to the boy child. We need to be physically, we need to have physically and emotionally present fathers. So the father doesn't have to just be physically there, but they have to be emotionally present. So what we mean is that while the father may be there physically, they need to connect with the child emotionally. How are you feeling today? You seem not to be happy today. What could be the problem? So even the mother should also be emotionally present. It's not only the duty of the father. We understand that we give a lot of nurturance to the girl child. We are worried when they seem to be not okay, but we also need to give the same nurturance to the boy child. Let's check on them. Let's find out who their girlfriends are. Open up about that. Let's find out what happened with the girlfriend. Why are they sad? Why are they not feeling okay? Why is the face not looking well? And things like that. And another point is that we need to be not only physically and emotionally present, but we also need to be involved, emotionally involved. Let's be involved with our children. Let's watch out whatever they are doing. We need to understand when they have indicated that they want to go to the shops, they borrow money to you. They will ask for money involved. Let's see if they bought that food. One of the reasons why there is a spike in drug and substance abuse is because parents are not involved with their children. You don't know what the child is doing. You don't know where they've gone, all that. And as a result, you just see at the end of the day, the child is involved in things that you never expected to see. So we need to be there also for the boy child in as much as we are there for the girl child. What can parents do? We continue on that. Be physically and emotionally present, as I've already said. Be also involved. You need to spend some quality time. You need to create some time with the boy child. Let's get them to express themselves. Let's get them to have open and honest conversations where we talk about issues, where we talk about their concern. You need to listen to what your child has to say. Let's be there. Let's create time. You know what? If you are going to be there for your child for just 20-30 minutes, they may not have an opportunity to really express what they feel. But if you get more time, like if you go for an outing for the whole day, for instance, and do it again and again, they will end up opening up to you and expressing how they feel. So we need to listen to what they say, acknowledge their inner struggles. They just have struggles, just as you have, just as the girl child has. So acknowledge that, allow them to talk about it and express it. We need to provide role models for the boy child. A father or a father figure would do, just to be there for the boy, just so that they see a proper role model. What needs to be done by a man? What should a man do? How should they handle relationships? How do they handle household chores and things like that? Help them to feel connected. Okay, one of the reasons why most people end up in depression is because of loneliness. You know, loneliness happens even when you have children, when you have people around you, you can still feel lonely because you're not connected. So we need to help them feel connected, talk to them, create platforms for them to interact with them. Okay. Again, on what parents can do, we need to inspire our children to join probably clubs at school, to attend, to do some activities. This helps them to build social relationships, to remain connected. We need to give them ideas on attending various social events. They interact, they build social skills. This is also very critical. Let's encourage play days and sleepover at your houses. They need to have these things under guided control. If you don't allow them to have sleepovers at your house, they will have them somewhere else where you not like. Organize family gatherings so that they know their relatives, they know their family friends, etc. They interact and learn with each other, from each other. So I'm sure if we are going to focus on these things, we are likely to raise up boy children who are more responsible, who are more socially fit and emotionally strong. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much. That was really, really powerful, a powerful presentation. And I'm going to